Hello, YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have 10 articles for you in this episode, and all the URLs are in the description for your convenience. The first one here is off of BizPack Review. It says, elementary school shooting near San Bernardino with at least 4 victims. Scenes unfold. In this video, or in this, you care to pull them up and take a look at them. It says multiple gunshot victims have been reported at San Bernardino Elementary on Monday. Reportedly swarmed the North Park Elementary School, where there were at least 4 shooting victims, Fox News reported. Jared Bergen sent out a tweet that says there is a report of a shooting at North Park Elementary. Large police response. Please stay out of the area. More info to follow. Then Doug Saunders of Crime Shutterbug puts out a tweet that says, law enforcement from all over the region responded to shooting inside North Park Elementary School in San Bernardino. Died while 2 were rushed to the hospital. San Bernardino Police Chief Jared Bergen, social media. He put out tweets that say, 2 adults are deceased in a classroom believed to be a murder-suicide. We believe the suspect are down and there's no further threat. There are 2 wounded possible students taken to local hospitals, condition unknown. He said that the incident appeared to be murder-suicide. Said to be a teacher and 2 possibly students who are critically injured, according to Fox News. Chief Jared Bergen put out a couple more tweets here. It says preliminary info is 4 victims being treated. Suspect is possibly down as well. A murder-suicide happened in a classroom. 2 students have been transported to the hospital. Students were relocated to a high school for safety. Students at the school are being taken to Cajun High School for safety. The scene made their way onto social media, and there are pictures in this if you want to see them. One tweet here says, scary image of students being ushered to safety after a shooting at San Bernardino Elementary School. NBC5 put out a tweet that says, more. Police say shooting happened inside a classroom. Suspected shooter neutralized. They put out another tweet that says, 4 injured in what officials believe was murder-suicide at San Bernardino School. Threat contained. Tweet says, KTLA is on the scene overhead, hands while evacuating. Another tweet is massive law enforcement response to North Park Elementary in San Bernardino after someone opened fire. Picked Southern California News Group, and there's pictures all over the place in this thing if you want to see them. Another reports are coming in that 4 people were shot in an apartment, murder-suicide, try that again. Wow. Reports are coming in that 4 people were shot in an apparent murder-suicide at an elementary school in San Bernardino, California. San Bernardino was the site of the 2015 terrorist attack by Syed Rizwan Farouk and Tafeen Malik that killed 14 people. This story is developing. I have on that. The next one here is off BizPack Review. It says Stockholm terrorist was ordered to be deported shortly before the attack on suspicion of driving a truck through a crowd of people. The capital of Stockholm was ordered to be deported by authorities. Police confirmed. A 39-year-old Islamic State supporter of Uzbek arrested hours after the attack Friday, which left 4 people dead. Sunday that the man applied for residence in Sweden in 2014. His application was rejected in June of 2016, and authorities ordered him to leave the country in December. Police put out a warrant for his arrest in February, less than 2 months before the attack. The address given to authorities, police said at a press conference, if we don't know where they are, we can't carry out the deportation. Stockholm police carried out several raids across the city Saturday. Around 5 people were detained and 1 person charged with participation in the attack. Local newspaper Afton Beladet reports the man is a 39-year-old father of 4 who lives in Stockholm area but is an Uzbek citizen. Claims he posted ISIS propaganda videos on his Facebook page and liked an image of helpless victims from the Boston Marathon attack in 2013, in April of 2013. A friend of the suspect told Afton Beladet the man works in construction and sends his paychecks back to his family in Uzbekistan. He has 4 kids and works in construction. He never talks about politics or religion. The only thing he talks about is getting more jobs so he can send money back to his family, the friend told Afton Beladet. The next article that I have for you is off of Northwest Liberty News. It says, Georgia police say anti-sex trafficking lawyer's murder was targeted killing. Little tiny print, so let me blow it up big enough I can read it. There, that's much better. A female in-house anti-sex trafficking attorney was shot and killed on Monday evening in Midtown Atlanta in what police are calling a targeted killing. 40-year-old Trin Heine was shot several times on Monday. She was an attorney for UPS and provided free work for sex trafficking victims. Heine was also a refugee from Vietnam and proud to be an American. I was on my route coming down Peachtree and I heard the gunshots, said eyewitness Tony Booker. I looked up to see the woman. She just drops in the crosswalk bleeding. She's clutching her wound, trying to keep pressure, and then she went unresponsive. So civilians run out to her and give her chest compressions to bring her back while they're applying pressure. Mrs. Hunya was taken to Grady Memorial Hospital where she died. Raylon Browning, age 39, was stopped by police after running a traffic light and was arrested. The killer had been witnessed. Yeah, that's what it says. The police say that the killer had been witnessed on CCTV both before and after the shooting. Atlanta Police Deputy Chief Daryl Tollison news conference on Tuesday afternoon that Browning was wanted in connection with an aggravated assault that occurred on Sunday in which he allegedly stabbed 2 people. The Atlanta Police Department put out a tweet that says Midtown shooting arrest, and somebody else put out a tweet that says APD Trina's killer was wanted for aggravated assault after stabbing 2 people the day before he killed her. BTV for more information. Cobb County Police discovered the murder weapon inside Browning's vehicle. At the time of the arrest, people did not know he was a suspect in Trin's murder, but an Atlanta police investigator connected him to the murder during an investigation of the assault on Sunday. The Atlanta Journal and Constitution reports surveillance footage captured him approaching Hanna and leaving the area, Lieutenant Ricardo Vasquez said. It shows that he was very calm before the shooting incident, Vasquez said. And then, even though he runs after the shooting incident, he again slows down and just starts to walk away. It wasn't Browning's first run-in with the law. Officials said he's been arrested on drug and DUI charges and has gotten violent with police when arrested in the past. Listen, was picked out of the crowd for whatever reason. That she was a target, Vasquez said. Why she was a target, we do not know yet. Didn't talk to Hunya before he killed her, suggesting that the killing was targeted, police said earlier this week. Following her in another piece of video, Vasquez said, there was another person in that intersection and it appears that he specifically targeted her. Georgia Asian Pacific American Bar Association released a statement on Tuesday and described Hunya as a woman who passionately lived her life, just her friend or lawyer. Her loss is tragic to GAP-ABA, whom she influenced and large. She will be greatly missed. The Georgia Asylum and Immigration Network also issued a statement on her death, said Gain released a statement calling Trina fearless, light, who was deeply passionate about the immigration community, charged with murder and jailed at the Fulton County Jail. Off BizPac Review, and it says layoffs you'll actually be happy to hear about. The Service Employees International Union, called the SEIU, spent $61 million on political activities and lobbying in 2016, as well as an additional $19 million on the Fight movement. Is lending to massive layoffs. Most recent Department of Labor filings revealed that the union spent $6 million, or about 20% of its $314.6 million budget, on political activities, including Hillary Clinton's failed 2016 presidential campaign, according to Bill McMorris of Washington Free Beacon. While the union picked up a modest 15,000 new members in 2016, it has seen revenues fall, leading to staff layoffs inside its Washington, D.C. headquarters, according to the report. According to McMorris, the $61.6 million figure was $13 million higher than what was spent in 2014, but $51 million less than what the union spent during former President Barack Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. SEIU, which represents over 2 million members in the public sector, service, and healthcare industry, made plans to cut its budget by 30% after President Donald Trump defeated Clinton in November. President Mary Kay Henry called for a dramatic rethink of the union strategy, categorizing Trump and the Republican-controlled Congress as the far right, because the far right will control all three branches of the federal government. SEIU will face serious threats to the ability of working people to join together in unions, Henry said in a December 14, 2016 internal memo obtained by Bloomberg. The SEIU endorsed Clinton in November of 2015, despite growing support among rank-and-file union members for socialist Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who backed a $15 minimum wage, something Clinton did not fully support as late as November the 3rd of 2015, when she said she favored a $12 minimum wage. The union has been a big proponent and financial supporter of the Fight for $15 movement, an area where they have seen incremental progress. Seattle, Washington raised its minimum wage to $15 in 2014, followed by San Francisco and Los Angeles. Democratic New York Governor Andrew Cuomo signed into law a new $15 minimum wage for his state in 2016, and the University of California proposed to pay its low-wage employees $15. The union also declared victory after President Trump's initial selection to lead the Department of Labor, former CKE Restaurant CEO Andy Pudzer withdrew his name from consideration after Senate Republicans informed the White House that they didn't have the votes to confirm him. Fight for $15 activists and unions waged an all-out campaign to block Pudzer from the labor post, forcing Trump to select a new nominee, Florida Attorney R. Alexander Acosta. Spent $142 million on representational activities and $144.9 million on overhead and the Fight for $15 movement, according to McMorris. Article that I have for you is off of Dallas News, and it says hacking blamed for emergency sirens blaring across Dallas early on Saturday. And get the hamster to cooperate with me here. Dallas officials blame computer hacking for setting off emergency sirens throughout the city early on Saturday. Rocky Vaz, director of Dallas Office of Emergency Management, said that all 156 of the city's sirens were activated more than a dozen times. Officials don't know who was responsible for the hacking, but Vaz said with a good deal of confidence that this was someone outside our system and in the Dallas area. The city has figured out how the emergency system was compromised and is working to prevent it from happening again, he said. It's a very concerning issue that Dallas has never faced. Although Vass said that identifying who surrounded the sirens will be like finding a needle in a haystack, Mayor Mike Rawlings said authorities will find and prosecute whomever is responsible. This is yet another serious example of the need for us to upgrade and better safeguard our city's technology infrastructure, Rawlings said. Position, which is why every dollar of taxpayer money must be spent with critical needs such as this in mind. Making the necessary improvements is imperative for the safety of our citizens. Authorities initially described the problem as a system malfunction when the sirens started blaring shortly before midnight on Friday. City spokeswoman Sana Saeed said about 12:30 a.m. that Dallas fire and rescue crews were working to fix the problem, but it took until about 1:20 a.m. to silence them for good because the emergency system had to be deactivated. The shut down Saturday while crews safeguard it from another hack. The city said the system should be restored Sunday or Monday in time for the thunderstorms that are expected to begin rolling through that area early next week. One of the biggest challenges the security breach posed was to the city's 911 call system, which has been strained recently by technical difficulties and short staffing. Even as the city asked residents not to dial 911 to ask about the sirens, more than 4,400 calls were received from 11:30 p.m. to 3 a.m., twice the average number made between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., Seed said. Surge came from midnight to 12:15 as about 800 incoming calls caused wait times to jump to 6 minutes, far above the city's goal to answer 90% of calls within 10 seconds. We understand that people were concerned, Saeed said, if we were being attacked because of what's going on overseas. Said they have begun working with the federal agency to add an alert system that would send messages to all cell phones in the area when there is an emergency. So has asked this commission to help find who is responsible for the security breach. In November, the city council approved a $567,368 budget to maintain and repair all of the city's emergency sirens over the next 6 years. Michigan-based West Shore Service was the winning bidder for the city's contract. The company's operation manager, Luke Miller, said that the city had not notified him that the system had been hacked. I'm trying to get information along with everyone else, he said. I don't know. Miller said he expects his company will help investigate what went wrong. First, Council member Philip Kingston, a member of the Public Safety Committee, said Saturday morning that officials will move the compromised emergency system to the top of their agenda because the list is so long, he said, referring to other problems, including the short-staffed 911 call center. If this is indeed hacking, it has just become top priority, Kingston said, and you can put me down as terrified. Jennifer Staubach Gates, who also serves on the Public Safety Committee and is chairwoman of the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee, said City Auditor Craig Kenton it was time for the city to review its security vulnerabilities. If it's hacking, she said, if someone's messing with our emergency system, we've got an issue. What kind of vulnerabilities do we have? Staff writer Eileen de Bruin contributed to this report, it says. There you have the information on that. And the next one that I have here is off of the Free Thought Project. Hamster spins the wheel around here. There we go. Cops release ominous intimidation video. Facebook immediately compares them to ISIS. As that he will likely regret. Lake County Sheriff Peyton Grinwell soon be internet famous for a threatening and poorly thought out Facebook video. The video, which is ostensibly meant to scare drug dealers, has since begun to go viral, but Claiming to have received multiple calls about heroin overdoses from the citizens, Sheriff Grinnell pledged violence and intimidation against those who dare sell the dangerous drugs. As silly as the video may look, however, patience and the ignorance behind its laughing matter. One Facebook user wrote, "The gang in green with masks on, probably worse than ISIS with their unconstitutional no-knock raids." And it says, surrounded by his deputies in their tactical vests who stare into the camera through their sunglasses and face masks, the sheriff encourages citizens to snitch on their neighbors who may be selling heroin. The video is produced in the same fashion as an ISIS or Al Qaeda video, and those with enough sense are calling the sheriff out for it. There's an insert here in this. It says, an ISIS recruitment video at first glance. So glad we both moved out of Florida. This does not make me feel safer. Facebook user. Chill out, Peyton. You're not Liam Neeson. With the mask, then why are you putting them in front of the camera at all? Why not just behind you that the community knows and likes? It's me of one of those horrible ISIS videos with a bunch of masked men, they write. And then the article continues. It says, the sheriff is so misinformed and blinded by the profitable war on drugs that he fails to realize it's his very tactics that lead of overdoses like we are currently seeing. Police departments currently waging a violent war on arbitrary substances, the trade into the black market, because the war on drugs does nothing to curb demand. Black market without proper consumer checks and balances fosters criminal behavior, standard and essentially dangerous products. This horrendously ominous blunder is that many people aren't buying it. An insert here that says, thugs no different than any other street gang committing violence against innocent people. They are the reason heroin is so dangerous. They keep legitimate manufacturers from producing safer alternatives. Fails to realize that the recent heroin epidemic is due largely in part to the fact that legal heroin, aka opioid pain, are like, try this again, aka opioid painkillers like OxyContin, have hooked millions of people in this country. When these pain pills became harder to get, though through more strict litigation, addicts then turned to heroin to feed their pharmaceutically induced addictions. Insert says, what about the legal opiates that kill more than heroin and cocaine combined? No one ever wants to go to war against that. Heroin is not nearly as deadly as the bathtub drug cocktails being sold on the street in its place. Heroin today contains mostly fentanyl compound, upwards of 50 times more potent and far deadlier than actual heroin. Grinnell refused to study actual data, opting for armored AR-15s and violence instead of opioid overdoses has gotten seriously out of hand. Wrote on Facebook, how about you actually study the problem, Sheriff? Issue, not a criminal. It was created by the pill epidemic caused by weak laws and legislation. The issue after they all became addicted are hard to get, and they turned to heroin. Many of the dealers are addicts themselves that are paying for their habit. To arrest anyone and create more institutionalized criminals with records and further inundate the already backed up system. What does research know? Screw proactive and modern approaches. Let's dress like ninjas and threaten them. Why trust in a law enforcement is so low. Stay safe. Grinwell would do well to read a study or two. As the Free Thought Project has reported at length, heroin overdoses can be stifled by doing the opposite of what he's advocating for. In states with legal marijuana, heroin overdoses plummet. The following comment sums it up perfectly, written by someone who is an avid reader of the Free Thought Project. And it says, "We're tired of you black masked drug warriors. Go home and bring back the police who investigate real crimes. Americans want prohibition ended, treated by medical professionals, not jackboot thugs. They stole more from Americans last year through civil asset forfeiture than all the thieves in America. End prohibition, end the drug war, as medical issue that it is. Instead of filling up jails, bolstering the police state like Grinwell wants to do, they should be solving actual crimes like murders instead of kicking in doors in the middle of the night. His deputies should investigate the backlog of more than 13,000 untested or unprocessed Florida currently collecting dust in departments across the state. Violence against individuals for their substance abuse problems. The sheriff should advocate for the decriminalization of all drugs, which would allow for safer alternatives and treatment for addiction. Sadly, it appears that this sheriff has no intention of changing. The good news, however, is that Grinwell is a dinosaur, becoming obsolete as society continues to demand an end to the drug war. An example of shift comes from Gloucester, Massachusetts, as the opioid epidemic came into full force in recent years. Massachusetts had a novel idea: help drug addicts instead of throwing them in a cage, to the creation of the Angel program, of helping addicts instead of criminalizing them. Such success, it's been adopted by 200 police agencies in 28 states. Phenomenon shows that it's possible for law enforcement to listen to reason when it comes to drug abuse and actually helping communities. Grinwell should take notice, which epitomizes the sheer insanity that is the war on drugs. And you can take a look at that video here in this article. There's a couple of them, as a matter of fact. It says, after watching the above video, one pointed out its similarity to the video below. Notice, however, that masks below are not cops. You can pull that up and take a look at that if you're interested. The next one we have off of Liberty Headlines says, sanctuary cities have higher crime rates. Surprise! Do indeed experience higher crime rates than do non-sanctuary cities. In WND analysis of the most recent study of the question reveals. In August of 2016, study of the relationship between sanctuary city policies and crime rates shows that cities refusing to cooperate with federal immigration authorities consistently have significantly higher violent crime rates than do non-sanctuary cities. Similar populations and demographics, WND has found. The study, published last fall by researchers from the University of California, Riverside and Highline College in Des Moines, is frequently cited by proponents of sanctuary cities who ignore or downplay one important detail: the actual crime statistics of the carefully cities chosen for comparison model. An analysis of the data by WND reveals that non-sanctuary cities comparable in population, size, and demographics consistently year over year experience and report lower percentages of violent crime as well as lower percentages of property crimes. Authors of the study, researchers Lauren Collinswood, Benjamin Gonzalez O'Brien, and Stephen, define a sanctuary city as a city or police department that has passed a resolution or ordinance expressly forbidding enforcement officials from inquiring into immigration status and or cooperation with ICE. admit their assumptions going into the study in crime rates would be negligible, and their stated conclusions are that's what was found. Since undocumented immigrants face deportation in addition to criminal charges, it is logical that they would avoid breaking the law to a greater extent than population, they wrote. We expect to see no statistically significant difference between sanctuary and non-sanctuary cities. Introductory comments on what they expect to find in the data included this statement: likely that sanctuary cities will have more crime, be it violent rape as claimed by some political candidates and opponents of sanctuary cities. However, the report varies. The statistics show from 2000 through 2014, sanctuary cities have had higher crime rates than non-sanctuary cities, with the disparity growing. The researchers examined 54 cities in 19 states, plus the District of Columbia. The National Immigration Law Center that implemented sanctuary ordinances post 9/11 after 2002. Using city-level crime data compiled by the FBI, they assessed crime rates at the city level immediately following the implementation of a sanctuary policy. Each sanctuary city to a similar situated city based on relevant census and political variables, creating a scenario where the two cities are possible with the exception of the sanctuary policy. The research claims that their study shows designating a city as a sanctuary has no statistically significant effect on crime. Our findings provide evidence that sanctuary policies have no effect on crime rates, despite the contrary, they wrote. Of sanctuary cities, such as better incorporation of the undocumented community and cooperation with police, thus have little cost for the cities in question in terms of crime. The study, however, overwhelmingly contradict the conclusions of the authors. Violent crime rates are, in fact, drastically higher in sanctuary cities than their non-sanctuary counterparts, as is evidenced by the chart to delineate their conclusion. While the three assert that violent crime is only slightly higher in sanctuary cities than non-sanctuary cities, the very chart used to delineate their claim shows something else entirely: consistent, significant, and growing crime rate differentials between sanctuary cities and non-sanctuary cities. The violent crime rate in sanctuary cities, as indicated above in a chart here in this article, dramatically increased after sanctuary city policy was enacted, and even doubled in some cases. The researchers found similar results for property crime, and rape. Mantras of the pro-sanctuary movement has been that the policies of non-enforcement and non-reporting of immigration violations to federal authorities would have the effect of fostering cooperation between police and city officials in matters of crime reporting and finding witnesses, prosecutions. No data has ever been collected to suggest illegal immigrants are offering such cooperation in preventing crime in these jurisdictions. Concurrently, no study, scientific or anecdotal, to suggest cooperate in fighting crime in these jurisdictions. At the same time, aliens being released by sanctuary jurisdictions commit more crimes when they get out than do non-aliens. According to the Department of Homeland Security, from January of 2014 to August of 2014, more than 8,145 aliens were released from jail after arrest after their respective jurisdictions declined an immigration detainer request from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. 62% of them had a prior criminal record, and 3,000 of them were felons. 145 individuals released, 1,867 were subsequently rearrested 4,298 times, staggering 7,491 charges. Accountability Office released a report on April the 7th, 2005 that found criminal aliens comprise about 27% of federal prisoners. The authors of the new study do not argue that sanctuary policies cause any decrease in crime, rather that they have little impact on crime. City advocates insist that their policies foster better relations with immigrant communities that lead to more effective law enforcement. Director of Policy Studies for the Center for Immigration Studies disagrees, adding that sanctuary city policies result in more crime because of the release of so many aliens back into the streets without review. Policies don't actually work. They are just an excuse for the political objections that they have for immigration enforcement, she said. Cops will tell you that the main way they solve crimes is by evidence, not necessarily relying on witnesses. Opposes or opposed to sanctuary policies. From Harvard Harris found that 80% of the voters say local authorities should have to comply with the law by reporting illegal immigrants with whom they come into contact to federal agents. The Trump administration is cracking down on sanctuary cities and counties that do not cooperate with the federal government in enforcing U.S. immigration law. President Trump issued an executive order in January that gave Attorney General Jeff Sessions the authority to sanction any city that doesn't readily hand over immigrants for deportation. On March the 27th, Sessions sanctuary cities of Justice Department grants for state and local law enforcement. Jurisdictions that do not comply with particular federal law on immigration, Sessions warned, eligible for certain kinds of federal funding. Despite public sentiment and the White House directive, Democratic Party leaders of sanctuary cities vow to disregard federal law on aliens or illegal aliens, are accusing President Trump of inaccurately portraying illegal immigrants as criminals. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security reported in February that 10 sanctuary jurisdictions refused ICE's detainer request to hold 540 criminal aliens. Period. Some aliens who were released in California were convicted of cruelty toward a child, assault, burglary, and domestic violence. Released from jurisdictions ranging from Colorado to Washington State with crimes such as aggravated assault, indecent exposure, drug possession, forgery, larceny, and driving under the influence. Critics of Trump's sanctuary city crackdown are comparing the new administration policies with racism and slavery. Newark, New Jersey Mayor Roz Barca argued Sunday that the Trump administration's pulled federal funding from so-called sanctuary cities as an attempt to intimidate local officials into becoming fugitive slave catchers. Sheriff David Clark, author of Cops Under Fire, has been an outspoken critic of sanctuary policies. We are not a nation of immigrants, he told WND. We are a nation of laws. When they can't construct and build out an argument, the left resort to name-calling. I'm tired of people, the left, trying to mix this up, lawful immigration versus illegal immigration. WND attempted to contact the author of the August study for comments about conflicts between the data they gathered and their conclusions, but they did not reply. BizPac Reviews, the next one, and it says, I want to make a deal to get U.S. to keep illegals. Wait till you hear what they're offering. Mexico, they have great sense of humor, either that or great imagination. A Mexican historian maintains that his country still has legal claim to Texas and California, but is willing to let bygones be bygones and not pursue the matter. In return, U.S. citizenship to millions of undocumented immigrants estimated to be residing within our borders. Apparently, the land of sombreros and tequila doesn't want them either. Carraz, who described himself as a historian, maintained in a New York Times op-ed that Not only does Mexico have legal claim to Texas and California, but also sections of southern Mexico and Arizona. All those territories we ceded to the United States pursuant to the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848 brought an end to the Mexican-American War. Carras claimed that it was President Trump's rhetoric on illegal immigration that prompted him to act. The United States invasion of Mexico in 1846 inflicted a painful wound that, in 170 years that followed, turned into a scar. Donald Trump has torn it open again, he wrote. Observed at this point that the memory of proud Texans is at least 10 years older than that of Carras. Their battle cry, "Remember the Alamo," refers to the battle that was waged 10 years before the start of the Mexican-American War. Carras continued, some Mexicans are proposing to remind Mr. Trump exactly what was the first victim of American imperialism. They are calling for a lawsuit that would aim to nullify the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed on February the 2nd of 1848, in which Mexico, invaded by American soldiers, its capital occupied, its ports and customs stations seized, was forced to accept the American annexation of Texas and concede more than half of the rest of Mexican territory, now including most of the states of Arizona, New Mexico, and California. He went on to suggest that the $15 million the United States gave Mexico for the territories it once owned was feeble. In comparison, however, in 1867, while the war with Mexico was being waged, the U.S. purchased the territory of Alaska for $1 million. Nonetheless, Carras suggested reparations, but the best and most just reparation would be American immigration reform that could open the road to citizenship for the descendants of those Mexicans who suffered the unjust loss of half their territory. Mexico can have both California and its citizens who are residing here legally or illegally. Try that again. Mexico can have both California and its citizens who are residing here illegally. As for Arizona, we'll throw in Senator John McCain to sweeten the deal. But now, here's the next one. This is off of Natural News, and it says, engineers say the next Californian earthquake could liquefy 235-foot-high dam and unleash 29 billion gallons of water into the Silicon Valley. So, I don't know, maybe Mexico wouldn't want California after all. But let's see here. It says the Golden State just can't seem to catch a break. Officials say that the Leroy Anderson Dam near Morgan Hill could liquefy in the event of an earthquake. The dam's embankments have been deemed stable. Safety concerns about the dam continue to rise, especially after the Coyote Creek flooding that devastated thousands in San Jose, California in February of 2017. Since 2009, the state's Division of Safety of Dams has in place that limits the Anderson Dam to keeping a water level at or below 68% of its full capacity. In February, that the dam was at 90%. Clearly, the concern about safety of the dam is more than justified. The Oroville Dam incident. The rising water level and the subsequent flooding have prompted Santa Clara Valley Water District Board of Directors Chair John Varela to send out a public letter informing area residents of the concerns surrounding the Anderson Reservoir. What would happen if a massive quake did occur? There's a chance that the dam could be damaged, but the chance of immediate dam exceedingly remote, Valeria said in a letter. State officials from the water district have cautioned 2.25 magnitude earthquake is all it would take, at least damage the dam. Depending on the level of collapse, a wall of water up to 35 feet high could be released and potentially flood Morgan Hill, Gilroy, and San Martin. The district plans on beginning a seismic retrofitting project, but the project will not begin until 2020. It is expected to take 4 years to complete, leaving a very large window of time quake in question to shake the dam and flood area. It's also worth noting that the retrofitting project began in 2012, according to the Santa Clara Valley Water District site. Apparently, the risk of impending disaster is not enough to spark the wheels of bureaucracy to move faster. Breitbart officials say the endeavor is still in its design phase and that will be coming with a hefty price tag estimated around $400 million. Residents can expect to pay for the retrofitting project via a partial tax and increased water prices for the next 30 years. Officials have decided to reduce the dam's maximum water level by an additional 10 feet. Try this again. Or whether or not that will be enough to ensure public safety is still up for debate. It's better than nothing, but fixing the dam would clearly be preferable, as we learned with the Oroville Dam escapade. Delaying repair sets the stage for catastrophe. Earlier this year, the Anderson Reservoir experienced its first flooding incident in over a decade. Water from the dam spillway began to overflow. The water level in Coyote Creek begins to rise, and San Jose was left reeling from the effects. City officials were forced to order some 14,000 citizens to evacuate their homes during the mid-February flood and shut down a portion of a major highway. City manager David Skies said property damages added up to a steep $50 million, and public infrastructure damages were estimated to total up to $23 million. Now, California wants to secede from the Union, and it appears that Mexico wants them. And with all the money that it's going to take to repair that state because of all the damage to the dams, maintained, it seems it would have been cheaper if Mexico would have just paid for the wall. But if they want California so bad, maybe we should give it to them. Next one is off a BizPack review. United Airlines is getting brutally roasted on social media after crazy video went viral. Man, if you haven't seen this video, you need to pull this article up, take a look at this stuff. Wow, can't make this up. United Airlines is reeling after damaging footage of a doctor being forcefully removed from a seat traversed Monday. Social media, including many celebrities, tore a strip off the company in what is becoming an absolute public relations nightmare, particularly after the United Airlines CEO Oscar Munoz issued a statement that referred to dragging the passenger down the aisle and violently removing him as accommodating. One puts out a tweet here. It says, "This response by United CEO sounds like a teenager's response to an insult. I'm going to reaccommodate your face with my fist." It was brutal. One puts out a tweet, says, "Dear United, I had to reaccommodate someone once." Says, JetBlue's new slogan, extra leg room and we won't physically drag you down the aisle screaming in pain. 95% of customer stuff on airlines is overblown. United travel is brutal. Having flown United last week, I feel very blessed to not be tweeting this message from a hospital bed. Getting on a United flight this morning, excited to, I don't know, stay on. Another one says, for the comfort and safety of, please remember we will be resorting to cannibalism by group number. Though I was at try that again. Thought I was at an FUC flight last night, but United. Another one says, if I was booked on a United flight, I'd drag myself off. Another one, I cannot wait to use I will reaccommodate your ass in my next fight. Another one says, wow, United, new low. I am appalled and absolutely disgusted. This is unacceptable. Some mock the incident by trying to come up with movie lines for United. And these are hysterical. When historians write about the United movie lines hashtag, they will be remembered I started it. I will make them an accommodation they can't refuse. Every time I think I'm on, they pull me back off. A United person once tried to reaccommodate me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti. Rule of the United seating policy is don't talk about Fight Club. You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody. Instead, I got reaccommodated. The, the greatest trick United ever pulled was convincing the world there was enough seats, and like that, it was gone. This is United. I never reaccommodated anybody in my life that didn't have it coming to them. You got that? To reaccommodate your enemies, to see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentations of their women. Did United overbook or just need room for employees? Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, passenger? Oh my, that's all I have for you this morning. I hope you've been entertained. I hope you've enjoyed the news. And if you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up. Share it on your social media. To subscribe if you haven't done that, and that way you'll stay informed. Have a great day.